Good morning, PTNI's Daily Show. Welcome in. Happy Thursday morning. Glad to have you here on Leadership Thursday. My name is Alan. I am your host today, currently serving as the COO of the Institute of Clinical Excellence and a faculty member in our Fitness Athlete Division. Leadership Thursday, we talk all things practice management, business ownership. But before we talk about Leadership Thursday, we're going to talk about Gut Check Thursday. This week's Gut Check, I did a common workout. If you've been doing CrossFit for a while, you know the workout, death by whatever, is usually an EMOM workout where you add 1 rep per minute of whatever movement you're doing until you hit failure. So this week we're doing death by burpees. We did it here at CrossFit Fenton a couple weeks ago, aiming to do at least 10 rounds. Some folks here at the gym getting into 15, even close to 20 rounds. So minute 1, 1 burpee. Minute 2, 2 burpees. Minute 3, 3 burpees. So on and so forth until you can't do the number of burpees you're supposed to in that minute, and then you've reached your limit. So death by burpees is on deck this week for Gut Check Thursday, so make sure you hit that. If you want to learn from us this summer, we have a couple live courses coming your way. We have 1 spot left this weekend in Charlotte, North Carolina at Onward Charlotte with Jordan Berry for lumbar spine management. You can catch Jordan next weekend out in Santa Barbara, California. That will also be lumbar spine management. That same weekend, that'll be July 24th and 25th. If you're over on the east side of the country, you can catch Justin Dunaway in Hopewell Junction, New York for total spine thrust manipulation. The first weekend of August, so that'll be July 31st and August 1st, you have 2 chances to catch Fitness Athlete Live. If you're in the Midwest, you can join Mitch in Kansas City, Missouri. And if you're in the Southeast, you can join Zach Long down in Hollywood, Florida, which is just outside of Miami. And in the weekend of August 7th and 8th, you can join Zach Morgan down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That'll be at Delta Physical Therapy with our friends Steve and Kristen for cervical spine management. And then finally that same weekend, August 7th and 8th, again, if you're in the Southeast, you can join Jason down in Orlando, Florida for Rehab of the Injured Runner, our live course. So those are the courses coming your way over the next month or so live. Let's get into today's topic. Today's topic is stop over-documenting. So documentation is a common complaint that we have in the medical field, definitely something we feel in physical therapy. And I want to just review what are the actual rules and guidelines behind what do you need to put in your documentation and take you through some examples and try to help you become more efficient at your documentation so that you're not spending so much time with your documentation. So hearing folks say I spend 2, 3, 4 hours a night on my documentation for the day is simply too much time. You're probably over-documenting. I remember as a student having a clinical rotation where the expectation was that you would write a full paragraph for every field in the EMR, which took 20 to 30 minutes per patient. It ended up being a small essay for every single patient, which is way too much documentation. On my last rotation, I was actually assigned to do a little service learning task where I created this sheet, pretty easy front and back of what are the actual documentation guidelines according to Medicare, who kind of sets the rules for the industry as far as what do we actually need to put in our documentation. So knowing these rules are very, very important. The goal for me is always 3-ish minutes for a daily note and maybe 10 minutes for an initial evaluation. If you find yourself spending 20 to 30 minutes per daily note, an hour for an initial evaluation, at least in outpatient physical therapy, you are probably over-documenting. Now, there are some exceptions. Those of us in acute care or maybe home health doing the OASIS, especially start of care, there's a lot more documentation involved. But if you are just an outpatient PT, whether you are taking insurance or taking cash, doesn't matter. You can get away very quickly with reducing time on notes if you know what is actually expected of you with your notes. So when we look at what is required in our documentation from the top, when we're doing an initial evaluation, for Medicare patients, and depending on your state, you'll need some sort of proof somewhere on there of referral from a physician. So that's usually done before you even see the patient. We need to get into the subjective and objective. What do we need to put in our subjective? We just need to be reassessing the patient's response to the previous treatment. how they're currently feeling, if there are any maybe conflicting factors on board. Maybe this person is recovering from COVID or the flu, or is coming back from vacation, anything that may alter their response to either the previous treatment or what you're about to do today. And within that, I would advocate that your subjective asterisk signs should be in there as well. Response to exercise, to home program, maybe you're working on sleep hygiene or nutrition, anything relevant that may affect either the patient's response and progress to the previous treatment or the treatment that you are about to conduct today. This is usually a sentence or two, and then I literally type an asterisk sign in the box, and I write down my asterisk signs. I put what they currently are, and in the parentheses I put the previous measurement. So subjective and objective reassessment go together. Again, a couple of sentences, and then the hard data of the reassessment, any measurements I may be doing. In your assessment, you need to just, in your initial evaluation, indicate rehab potential. This person is a good candidate for physical therapy because, or this person may have less than desirable response to physical therapy because of these other factors. Maybe a bunch of comorbidities. Maybe they live far away and they can only come to physical therapy once a week, every other week, once a month. They just can't come as much as you think they may need, and you need to document that that may inhibit your progress. And in that plan of care, we don't need short-term goals at all. We don't need a set number of goals. I've been at many clinics with all these arbitrary rules of 5 short-term, 5 long-term, 3 short-term, 3 long-term. You don't need any of that. You need long-term functional goals that are related to that patient's function that are measurable. So in a set amount of time, the patient will improve whatever in order to reach this goal, right? So in 6 weeks, the patient will improve their sumo kettlebell deadlift by 50 pounds in order to be able to pick up heavy bags of dog food without needing assistance, or maybe without low back pain. So something related to function, something that is measurable, and that has a planned time domain. So again, short-term goals are not required. I have this cheat sheet front and back that I'll post a link to that has all of the references to all of the documentation guidelines. Now, if you are dealing with patients who maybe have workers' compensation insurance or auto insurance, those case managers for those patients may require a more specific type of documentation. But for all the traditional types of people we're used to seeing, folks who are coming in paying cash, folks who are using Medicare, traditional commercial insurers like Blue Cross or United are all going to follow this guideline, which again says we do not need any short-term goals. We only really need to focus on long-term functional goals. We only need to list the types of services and interventions provided in the time that we spent on them. We do not need this complete, crazy, itemized flow sheet where we try and list out every single thing we did in the hour. Obviously, if you're doing functional stuff, you're doing deadlifts, you're doing something like an AMRAP or a capacity test, a 2-minute step test, you want to write that down in detail because you're probably going to use that to remeasure in the future, but you do not need to put an itemized list of what you did for the patient's warm-up, right? That is completely irrelevant. You don't need to spend the time documenting that. And then you just need to put in your risk evaluation how often you plan to see that person, days per week, how many weeks you think they will need, and that does not go in a daily note. Now, looking at what needs to be in a daily note, these should be really brief. Again, that subjective reassessment, objective reassessment, looking at those asterisk signs. What did we do? Anything I think that will remeasure in the future or that is important to that patient's function, meeting their goals, I'm going to list that out. I'm going to say we did every 2 minutes for 5 sets, we did 5 sumo kettlebell deadlifts, and I'm going to list the weights. But again, I'm not going to list out the warm-up. If we do any sort of accessory work, maybe some core work or grip training, I'm not going to specifically itemize that because it's probably not something that I'm going to reassess against, and I don't need to list it out. And then a plan for next visit. How did the patient respond in my assessment? They responded as I thought they would. Their strength is improving. Maybe for some reasons out of our control, they did not respond as well, right? Maybe they didn't sleep too good. Maybe they were sick. So they're not progressing their strength as much as I thought they would. And then the plan for next time, continuing to progress whatever we're working on to meet that goal. And then I'm going to read a quote here right from the Medicare guidelines, which I think will be very important for a lot of you to hear. The purpose of daily notes is simply to create a record of treatment and skilled intervention provided and to record the time of services in order to justify the use of the billing codes on your claim. Documentation is required for every treatment day and of every therapy service. A treatment note is not required to document medical necessity or appropriateness of ongoing therapy. This is the best part. Detailed descriptions of skilled interventions delivered should be included in the plan of care and in a progress note, but are not required every day in a daily note. You do not need to write paragraphs and paragraphs and paragraphs of every little thing you did, how many reps and sets in the warm-up. You do not need to write 3 paragraphs in the assessment. I think it's really important to remember nobody reads our notes. We spend all of this time on our notes. Nobody reads them but us. Maybe if you are working with PTAs or techs or other support staff, they are reading them. But especially if you're working one-on-one by yourself, no one reads your notes. Again, if you're working with a patient that is using auto insurance or workers' compensation insurance, there's probably a claims adjuster or something that's reading your notes. But if you are seeing a patient that has Blue Cross or Medicare, those notes don't get transmitted from the EMR. They stay in the EMR. All that gets output to the insurance company is the claim codes and a bunch of identifying information. None of the note ever leaves the EMR. Now, it's important we do notes to justify why we're doing physical therapy and in case there's any adverse reactions or anything like that. But other than that, remember that nobody is going to read 99.99% of your notes, so don't spend that much time on them, right? Do the what's required, do what you need to do in order to look back on a note and know that the patient is making progress, what you did last time, how you're going to increase the challenge this time, the weight, the reps, the sets, how you're going to keep that patient progressing, but don't go beyond that. And then what about progress notes? I would argue the way we use the symptom behavior model, if you're out there using the symptom behavior model, you are conducting a progress note every time that patient comes into the clinic. You are gathering progress in response to treatment subjective. You are reassessing subjective asterisk signs. You are reassessing objective asterisk signs. You are pretty much conducting a progress note every time that patient comes back into the clinic. So for most of my patients, unless they want one, unless their other providers want to see one, I don't do one on a regular basis. It's done every single time they come into the clinic. All ranges of motion, strengths, functional things, anything worth measuring that I think is worthwhile is going into the daily note. So a progress note is being done every day. But if you are doing a progress note, what needs to go in it? Again, from the guidelines here, to be completed about every 10th visit, should provide an evaluation of progress towards goals, should include a professional judgment about continuing care, modification of goals or interventions if necessary, or talking about the termination of care if goals have been met, or if patient and provider believe satisfactory progress is not being made. There are no guidelines that you have to recomplete every single objective test that you did, and that you must recomplete them on the progress note. So again, we use WebPT here. There is a ton of crap on WebPT. All these check boxes, I blow through all that. I do a free type, free text box, and I just look at what did I actually test in the objective exam. And then again, when that person is coming back into the clinic, I'm reassessing all that stuff. So again, for most patients, I don't feel compelled to spend a whole visit doing a progress note and reassessing a bunch of stuff because it's being done every single time they come back into the clinic. And then what about a discharge note? Again, this goes nowhere. No one is reading your discharge note, right? It's sitting in the computer. So keep it short. Why is the patient done with therapy? Usually it's as simple as all their goals have been met. Maybe they had to stop early due to time or money constraints. But just talk about why did care conclude? What progress did they make towards their goals? Again, most patients is going to be 100% of goals met. And then why you're discharging them. So straight from the guidelines. They tell you right in the guidelines, a long, detailed list is not necessary. Don't do it. That's Medicare telling you stop over-documenting. So I think it's important to know what are the rules and what does it actually look like in practice. All this comes from the Medicare Benefit Policy Manual called MBPM. And again, I have this cheat sheet. I will post a link to it under this video on Facebook and Instagram so that you all can have that resource. I know some of you are probably aware that you over-document, but you're being told how to document, and something like this can be good to sit down maybe with your manager or owner and have a discussion about peeling back on your documentation a little bit so that you're spending less time documenting, more time with the patient treating, or more time at home doing stuff besides documentation. So I want to just take some quick examples real quick with a couple of notes here. So we have an initial eval here, which is 1 page, right? So sometimes evals look like a thesis statement. They look like 5 or 10 pages of stuff. Again, this is WebPT. I'm big on ignoring all the click boxes and just doing one big free type box and just listing everything I assessed. So subjective here is about 3 sentences. Patient presents with right shoulder pain, 4 to 5 out of 10 at best, 10 out of 10 at worst, aggravated by pressure on the arm, lifting overhead and reaching across the body. Symptoms instantly aggravate to 10 out of 10 and can take multiple hours or the rest of the day to ease back to a resting 4 to 5 out of 10. So severity, irritability established in 2 sentences. Patient reports falling off a mountain bike, which resulted in shoulder pain, skin lacerations, and a right ankle sprain. Boom, done. There's subjective. What are my measurements? It's all free typed, right? I looked mainly at right shoulder flexion and abduction. An assessment, a couple sentences. 3 long-term goals that are objective, a couple sentences for the plan. Again, 1 page eval, right? Takes maybe 10 minutes to get through the eval. And then daily note, much shorter, right? A lot of this stuff is pre-filled in. Again, a couple sentences here, 3 sentences, reassessment subjective. Literally type in the asterisk sign and all my objective measurements that I'm going to remeasure when the patient comes back to the clinic. I am going to itemize manual therapy and list out specifically what I did, and anything that I'm going to reassess as far as exercise out in the gym, I'm going to put on there as well. But otherwise, I'm not going to get into detail, right? I just have a note here, updated home program, general warm-up, dynamic warm-up, specific warm-up, not getting into an itemized list. And then what's nice about our EMR is the goals are right on the bottom, again, every visit, making the argument that I don't need to stop anytime during the plan of care and make a specific progress note visit. It's happening every single visit. So take a look at these guidelines. Again, the link will be under this video on Facebook or Instagram. Make sure you're not spending more time than you need to documenting, and have a conversation with your colleagues, with your managers, with your owners about, are we writing down too much? Because again, at the end of the day, we're the only ones that usually read our notes, and we should not be writing these giant novels that are just going to sit on the internet for all of time and never be read again by anybody but us. So keep that in mind as you're going through documentation. Try to trim it down. My goal is always to have the morning notes done at the start of the lunch hour, and to have my notes done before I leave for the day, maybe 15 to 20 minutes at lunch, 15 to 20 minutes in the afternoon, and I pretty much never take documentation home. So go through these guidelines, look at what you actually need to have in there, and see if you can't shave some time off your documentation so that you're not over-documenting. So happy to hear comments about this discussion, maybe what EMR you use you found that flows really nicely. We're looking at changing to Jane here soon, which will save us even more time, which is going to be great. But have a look, practice your documentation a little bit, see if you can't trim some time off of there. So if you'll be in Charlotte this weekend with Jordan, have a great time. Otherwise, I'll see some of you in Victor, New York in August if you're going to be there for cervical spine management with Jeff. Have a fantastic weekend. Have fun with Gut Check Thursday. No excuses, no equipment required. It's just burpees. And have yourselves a wonderful Thursday. Bye, everybody.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.